I welcome you back to Moments of Reflection. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and it is a joy to come back to you, sharing with you my reflections. Today I want to consider the soul and the spirit. It's very interesting because there are many different categories of belief systems that deal with the soul and what the soul is and what the spirit is. There are many scientists or behavioral scientists or neurological scientists who have yet to come to believe in a soul as the scriptures advocate. Many believe that the soul is circuitry and the various cells and the components, as well as those chemical processes that cause the brain to work and the brain to function. And so many people relegate personhood and the soul as no more than a chemical and biological energy function within the body. And we must be real in understanding that there are some processes that take place in the body that are caused by bioelectrical and chemical processes. But there's something more that goes on. Because if the process itself was the living, animated soul, then that process could be produced again in a lab. But there's something that is deeply embedded within the physiology of man that enables man to work, his mind to work, and his mind to work in conjunction with the brain. I don't believe that the brain and the mind are one and the same. I believe that the mind operates through the mechanisms of the brain and through the mechanisms of the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And so what we have then in my consideration, and again, these are my reflections, I believe that there's something going on within the physiological context of man. It's as if the body is a living atmosphere, the Latin term for place of dwelling, or the living atmosphere, the environment in which the living mind or the soul now operates and lives as we as individuals gain access to understanding the physical world around us, the external world, and we process it. When we consider the human mind appears to thrive according to the biblical principles and according to just common sense. The scriptures tell us in Genesis 2:7 that God formed man out of the dust of the ground. He breathes into the nostrils of man the breath of life, and man becomes a living soul. Somehow, we as humans have gotten it confused that the soul and the spirit are one and the same. Technically, when we look at Scripture, the Scripture reveals that the Hebrew term for soul is nephesh, and in some instances, depending on the language or the concentration of the various diphthongs and how you use the language, the various regions in which the languages were originated. Sometimes the term is nepes. And this word, nephesh or nepes, it literally means a breathing creature. Now, the term spirit, if we trace it back to the Old Testament, the term spirit is the word ruach. In the New Testament, it is the word pneuma. And each of them deal with a current of air or a breeze or a blast. And so the differentiation that the Scripture seems to make concerning soul and spirit is that the soul is a breathing creature. The soul is an independent agent or an individual agent that breathes. while spirit is breath. And so in the studies of Essencology, it is a method of counseling, biblical counseling, that I've developed since 1988. It is a system that says, number one, that the soul then is the individuality or the personhood, and it breathes, and the breath is the spark that gives life and maintains life. And so when we talk about soul and spirit, it appears that the spirit is the foundational, maintaining life force that enables the soul to exist, as well as enables the soul to maintain its existence. The fact that spirit is something uniquely different and how it impacts the soul can be seen, that anything that has to do with living or consciousness is always centered around breath. The first thing we do to see if something is living is, does it have a pulse or is it breathing? We understand when breath is limited that the mind loses consciousness. And so, in my mind, reflecting on soul and spirit, spirit seems to be foundational life that brings existence and life to the physiology and life to the mind. And spirit also seems to indicate that consciousness cannot survive or maintain itself without spiritual essential being. And so life in its very delicate balance, when we begin to talk even about evolutionary designs, whenever there is a design, we have to question what drives the design. Design in and of itself deals with programming. Can there be an evolutionary design without something that has been programmed into the physiology or the very nature of humanity? Even if we were to fall back on evolutionary designs, we have to ask, what drives the design? Why is that design there? And so Essencology seeks to delve into the purpose for the mind, the purpose for the design. Why the pattern? Why does the mind operate through an elaborate structure of a brain that seems to be so detailed and so precise? And so in considering and reflecting on the mind and the spirit, the soul, I've come to understand that there's so many more mysteries. And I doubt if we will ever discover what the mind really is, what the soul really is. We understand it exists. We understand that it works through mechanisms of the central nervous system, the peripheral system, and all of the different aspects of the brain. But why? What is the fundamental cause, and what is the purpose? We're out of time now. I thank you for joining me. I am Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and you have been listening to Moments of Reflection. Until next time, God bless. Have a good day.